can't really make up ideas about what he's going to do, because we know what he's going to do because he already did it for 4 years. He's going to keep doing those things.
This is Lars Walker. You're listening to All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.
Hello and welcome back to All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends. I'm your host, Eric Porvoznik, and a special episode today. No guest today. It's just me and Jim, but it's special in that Jim and I, hello, Jim.
Hello.
How are you today? And what I'm dubbing this show the post-election elation.
Indeed, I'm quite well, especially last week.
So that's what I want to get into. Jim and I were both able to, in our respective, I learned we were not a precinct where I was working, but we both got to work at the polls this year. And we want to talk about that, and then we'll get into the election a little bit and where we think things are going to go and where they could go or should go. And Jim, but first, before we get going, tell us about what it was like working the polls this year, notably in your neck of the woods.
Yes. So I work. Yeah, I'm in Washington State, as you can see, and so Washington State does things a little differently. We're pretty much all mail-in voting. So all mail-in ballots. So there is no need to have a traditional polling place, but what we have are polling boxes where people where people just drop off their ballots through a little slot. So that's the main thing, is keeping those secure. So my position officially was called Dropbox closer, and so basically my job was to not guard, but let's say occupy the boxes.
Occupy Jim. Gotcha.
Yes. And with a partner. That was one of the rules: is we couldn't be alone with the box for any time, to maintain integrity, and basically just make sure that everyone is able to deposit their vote without a problem, answer any questions anybody has, and then when voting closes, to lock everything up and then take the votes down to the precinct. So that's basically it in a nutshell. It was interesting. This particular election was not what I expected.
Go on.
In that, so I've been doing this for a couple of years. Up until now, it's been special elections, local elections. The area I work at gets pretty crowded on election night, and usually there's cars backed up all the way up to the road to drop their ballots off. So we knew this one was going to have a huge turnout because it's a huge presidential election that everybody cares about. So we were bracing for this huge crowd. We had more people working each box than ever before, and we had almost nobody. Very, very few people showed up, and so we ended up and without as much to do as we expected. What actually happened was, I think that almost everyone mailed their stuff in early because they were so pumped about this election. So there actually wasn't that much to do at the voting boxes on election night. So I mean, and we have been seeing the numbers from our state, our county leads, and this is probably the biggest turnout we've ever had for an election as far as voting goes. But when you have a mail-in state, everyone pretty much mails in their stuff when it really matters to them. So that's basically what happened. Was the post office has been very busy for the past few weeks.
Sure.
But the traditional voting and counting methods haven't been as active as expected. So that is the long and short of it, at least as far as my county goes. So it was actually relatively quiet for our election night. But it has been a very interesting position for previous elections. We've had, it's mostly been fine. We've had some people say some disturbing things to us from time to time.
Really?
Yeah. They just don't like that there's representatives there hanging out with the boxes, so they'll make some comment or something.
Represent like governmental representatives manning boxes, or how do you mean by that?
Well, and that's the thing is people don't always know why we're there. We tell them, but they think maybe it's something fishy, or we're like, it's like the Men in Black of elections or something crazy like that.
Well, help me out on this, because we had a similar thing with us. There were certain procedures that had to be done where it required a member of both major parties. And
Okay.
so our group leaders, or I can't remember, I can't remember her exact title, but the person in charge of our area, she had to know what our registered party was so that she could pair us with somebody.
Okay.
So, but again, no feedback from other people. But isn't it kind of? I'm going to guess you're the same way, right? Just for to keep nefarious things out, or you
Well,
might
it's
be
actually,
a Republican or Democrat and Democrat.
so it's actually so the position I was doing was actually nonpartisan.
Okay.
You weren't, in fact, you weren't even supposed to discuss politics with anyone. That's part of the job, is to keep it apolitical.
Yes.
So there are rules that say, for example, that both parties have to agree to the voting procedures in the county.
Okay.
So state GOP, state Democrats both have to agree to everything. And once they do that, it's basically good to go. Then they just make sure that the security of the process is as apolitical as possible, as unbiased as possible, theoretically.
Right.
So, so that's basically our job, is just to make sure that things are as secure as possible. But, you walk up to vote, you see people sitting there in reflective vests, standing around, maybe some people get flashbacks to the thugs standing outside in Chicago during Obama's election, whatever.
Or Philadelphia, or yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, some people just don't like it. They don't like seeing people standing around the voting. They think that you're there for something nefarious or whatever. So, we had people that, they would make comments about certain people getting shot or things like that in somewhat vague terms. And people that would just act creeped out, all kinds of stuff. So it was just, so yeah, the biggest surprise to me was that for this election, which was the big one, things were so quiet. Like most people had mailed in their stuff already. They didn't even try to go out to the box. And so it was relatively quiet. So for at least for us.
Oh, us as well. Although we did have, there was the normal ballot, which you come in, you print your ballot, then you take it over, go to your respective booth, and then you turn it in, you slide it through the machine.
Mm-hmm.
We also, what was it? I think on Thursday, if I remember the reports correctly, here in Arizona, by Thursday, because we've had early voting going on since the start of October, it was going on. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just a little over 50% of people had voted by Thursday. Okay. So the rest of the days, I was there for one more early day of voting on Monday, and went relatively smoothly. Not a lot of people. It was a good ebb and flow. And then Tuesday was the same way. A little busier on Tuesday, obviously election day, and we had a machine go down briefly, just because it misread. And this people are all over the place, listeners. I'm not scolding you. I'm merely imploring. I'm asking you, follow directions and do not use a ballpoint pen when you are voting. Use the supplied felt pens or felt pen of your own, because I learned that the ink rubs off from the ballpoint pens and it jams the machines up. So nothing nefarious going on with that. And just a quick backlog. I remember 4 years ago, I witnessed it with my own eyes. And look, I'm not saying, I don't want to get into the voter fraud, the votes weren't counted, all that stuff. It's a moot point at this stage of the game. And I wish people would just get over it, especially because, I saw things in action that were described, like machines went down and then I saw stacks of votes put off to the side. And, were those counted later? I don't know. Things that matched up with the suspicious activities that were going on in Arizona. This year, however, and I realize I've got nothing to work off of from an official standpoint, but I saw things above board, everything. Well, there were so many procedures. It had to be above board. Like I mentioned earlier, anytime that the ballot boxes got too stuffed, and it only happened twice because just of all the early voting, there had to be a Democrat and a Republican going over to the box, opening it, refastening it, everything above board. And no, I mean, the only malfunction happened because of the ink rub off, nothing nefarious. And to what you were saying earlier about apolitical conversations, I was with the same crew for 2 days. And although you could kind of tell which way some people leaned, You didn't know. We were just there. We were people,
Yeah.
able to be people and not know, which is what it should be. And
Yeah.
now in the real world, obviously, there should be debate, discussion, things like that. And one thing here in Arizona, I'm not sure if this is the same in Washington, but I think this may have been the first year or second time that you were allowed to wear candidate apparel. So hats, shirts, anything like that into
Mm,
the voting booth. Used to be it couldn't be like that. Now, do you
yeah.
guys have a similar rule?
We have a rule. No, actually, we have a rule that says no electioneering. That's the word they use.
Yeah,
Within
there's that too.
100
Yep.
feet. So that includes we're not allowed to wear anything like that. We're not allowed to talk about politics. If somebody shows up and starts trying to tell anybody who to vote for, you can tell them to get out of there.
Let me escort them out. Yep.
Yeah, trying to keep it as apolitical as possible.
Right.
And I agree with you. Like I was working with guys that, if we were sit down and having a beer together, we could probably air out all kinds of disagreements about the election. But there we were shoulder to shoulder, making sure that this thing was happening above board. And I think that's the important thing is you can disagree, but you should be committed to keeping things fair. Yeah. So I don't know if I agree with you about the last election. I think we should be talking more about what went on there, only because a lot of people got deplatformed and censored because when they tried to talk about it. And
okay, I'll backtrack. I will re-clarify. And I think the arguments of it was a stolen election, things of that nature. I think there's been and there is evidence of fraud. There is all of that, and I'm glad that we were able to have in the 4 years conversations about that on the right and the left, and we are able to make it more above board. Yes, keep having those conversations. I'm just saying that people get stuck on it was rigged, all that stuff. I mean, whether it was or wasn't, what happened in 2020 was the Democrats, they changed the rules, the Republicans didn't fight it, and they won because they changed the rules and they were able to have harvesting and all the things that are not above board, or it's a lot easier to manipulate that kind of process. That's what I mean by that. So, I mean, yeah, keep discussion going because it made a difference in Arizona, I think. And again, for people were telling me that there were enough changes in the last 4 years.
I think it made a difference in a lot of places because you had a spotlight shown on a lot of things that did not have a spotlight on them 4 years ago. And I've seen that in a lot of the news reports I've seen and things like that. But just, I mean, anecdotally, I wasn't doing this 4 years ago with the last election, but I can tell you that for this one, this was the first one I've worked in, and I've worked in 5 or 6 of them the last few years because we've had a lot of special elections and local elections. This is the first one I did where there were observers. And that's people that just come out and watch. So, we had a couple of people that were just standing in the parking lot watching us as we took all the votes out, got them secured, all that. And it was actually kind of a frustrating situation because it was getting late. We were tired and cold and it was pouring down rain. So every time one of us would make a mistake, we'd have to start the process all over again with, people just like this, just staring at us.
Yeah. We had, I can't remember, I think 3, maybe 4 different observers did shifts throughout the day. And they just sat down. They didn't get, up in anybody's faces, anything like that. So
no, they were chill about it, but
it said,
yeah, exactly.
Here we are.
Yeah. You're just under a microscope and it's like not only do I have to try to not make a mistake, so I'm not out here in the cold for another half hour, but I also don't want to look like I'm doing anything fishy either. So
they're there and you feel that they're there. Yeah.
Yes. You feel the eyes.
Well,
but that's a good thing. Like I said, we're getting a lot more eyes on the process, which is what you want.
And I'm not sure how much trouble I might get into for this, but it was just I'm down there doing my process when I was working the tabulation machine, and what I was able to see really helped me with the whole judging the book by the cover thing.
Right.
Because, and again, this is all anecdotal. And look, I wasn't on the. I've split time between helping people get checked in, and that was the only split time that we had. I saw any frustration. It was a guy because one of the people who was initially helping him get set up with his driver's license so he could print a ballot out. Look, a bunch of us, it was our first times, and this person wasn't as up to speed yet. It was early in the process, early in the day, of the
Mhm.
voting processes, and she wasn't able to do something. She forgot to hit the next button or enter or whatever it was. And the guy
Mhm.
was getting upset. And I said, there's only one person in this place who knows how to work it. Understand your frustration, sir. Just help, just diffuse the situation
Right.
and just helped him out and moved it along. So I did that for a little bit. Uh, but then I was basically between the getting people, the ballots would come off of the printers, and we would just check the numbers, make sure this person's got the right one. They've got
Mhm.
their voting slip, or I can't. There's an official name for it. I cannot remember. I should have reviewed. I still have my book. It's my first one working. I'm going to hang on to my first book and my name tag, my lanyard. But when I was working the tabulation machine, getting back to just judging the book by the cover,
Mhm.
there were a lot of Trump votes. And that's really because I was at the top. And may I just say, I'm not saying this is not a coincidence theory. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is just what I saw. In Arizona, Democrats, whether it was alphabetically correct or not, Democrats were listed first on every section.
Mhm.
Just, not
Same in my
saying,
state.
folks, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, exact same thing in my state. Always first, or yeah, or nonpartisan. But yeah, every time.
Primacy versus recency in action. But anyhow, but since the presidential one was at the top, I was able to see, was it a Harris or a Trump vote? And I saw at least 2-1. And again, this is my area, anecdotal, where I was in Arizona. And right beneath that was the Gallegos and Lake race. I didn't see as much of that stuff. But the Trump stuff, people that we found out, statistically speaking, whether it was Latino or Black, young, old, everything, there were a lot of votes where I was not expecting to see Trump marked in.
Mhm.
And the Harris ones were all pretty much what you expected.
Mhm.
And, again, just anecdotally speaking, I felt confident that night that, when I got to the because I wasn't looking at anything all day to see what numbers were, predictions, polls closing, all that stuff. But felt confident in Arizona. So, and then it turned out to be true. Although it did take a while because we also, with all the retirees here, a lot of mail-ins. So,
Right.
but yeah, but the drop boxes, same thing. People just come in, boom, pop it in. So,
Mhm.
but sadly, uh, now from your work as a pollster, is there anything else that you want to touch on that we haven't already?
Um, I
And
don't know.
do you plan on doing it again?
I probably will. It is a really interesting thing to be a part of. I mean, it's
Mhm.
very rote, like a lot of those kinds of like a lot of those kinds of positions. It's not very exciting, um, but no, I think it is interesting that most folks were very upbeat
Mhm.
when they were voting, and there wasn't any. I think at the time there wasn't any sense one way or the other which way it was going to go, but I think a lot of people just appreciated being able to have their voice heard.
Mhm.
A lot of people took pictures of themselves as they voted, as they put the thing in the box.
Oh, see, we weren't allowed to do that. And also our electioneering stuff was 75 feet away from the entrance, but clothing of a particular candidate was allowed. But like you, if it was anyone started politicking or electioneering, then yeah, we had the right. But yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, we weren't allowed to wear it. I think
I was
people.
allowed, once I found out I was allowed to wear my patriotic Declaration of Independence shirt, you're damn right I went for it.
Yeah, I think that I saw something along the lines of whenever you see an American flag, you kind of know who that person's voting for. It's funny how that works these days. But
It's in the words of James, sad but true.
yeah, but no, I mean, I think the enthusiasm is kind of nice to see. Like I said, there's usually at least one or two extreme folks, shall we say, that
Mhm.
just I don't know, have kind of a weird take on things. But yeah, in general, I think a lot of folks have kind of a good positive attitude. Saw a lot of what I'm pretty sure were immigrants casting their first vote in their
Mhm.
lives, and we're very proud of that. I think that's
Amen.
something that I think that to me was kind of the highlight of it, was being able to witness that. Yeah, I think whatever keeps more eyes on it, more impartial eyes on the process is a good thing. And so, I think anybody who wants to see the process up close or wants to do something for their community that helps maintain that kind of integrity, I think it's worth doing. So
Absolutely, yeah. And I had a 16-hour day. My shift started at 5:30, and we didn't get out of there till about 9:30. I did the right math on that one. 5, 12, 5, then yeah, 12, so 16-hour day. And I was told there'd be no math today, folks. I like that every day when there's not a whole lot of math involved. But 16-hour day. But once I shook off a slight migraine about 8:30, I was finding my fourth, my fifth, my eighth, ninth wins. It was buzzing. And I'm glad you brought up the immigrants who are having their first election votes. Every time we would find out that it was a first time voter, whether it was a kid or in their 18 or 20s or whatever, we were like, yeah, I said, sorry, I forgot the confetti, but
Yeah.
next time I have it. But yeah, and our day ended on a mom and her 3 of her daughters, and she had her son who wouldn't be voting for another 8 years. So, but hey, 10-year-old kid, he was ready for 8 years down the line. But this mom, she had one daughter who was her second election, but her other 2 daughters, it was their first time, and they were the ones who ended our day. And one of them was just taking a long time, but she wanted to do it right. And it's like, yeah, it was fun to watch, to see the process in action. And I recommend it, highly recommend it to anybody. And I plan on being back. Absolutely.
Yeah. One quibble I have with just how my county does it, other than just in general, I prefer to have voting booths to mail in, but I know that ship has sailed up here. But yeah, one quibble I will have about my county is that they don't do the I voted stickers anymore.
Aw.
I know they discontinued them for a variety of reasons, and so every time I work an election, I have to tell one person after another that asked for it, no, sorry, we don't have them anymore, and see the disappointment on their faces. But
Well,
because
tell you what, whenever you come down here and visit your family, I'll talk to our precinct, or sorry, our non-precinct leader. I'll try and track Kathy down and see if I can, because we had a ton down here. Smuggle a few up. Just have some bootlegs.
okay, I'll put them in a paper bag and sneak them across the border.
Don't get drunk. Where did those come from? You voted.
Yeah, like those are fun. Like that's one of the things that makes the elections fun, right? So why take it away? I don't know.
Well,
But
here's mine.
nice.
It's sitting here on my, and actually this is my second one. That's what we all had. We each picked one on the day of, so people knew that we had already participated in the process. But my other one, it was a really nice color. It's Arizona with some nice designs on, and actually matched the shirt I was wearing today. So I'm like, that one's sitting up on the bathroom mirror. But yeah, but again, great process. Can't recommend it enough. But now let's talk about what happened, the results. And you had some great stuff that you've written over Fredonia already. But I want to kick things off now. I'll hand it over to you, Jim, because your analyses are always awesome. John Ziegler said something on his most recent episode of The Death of Journalism, and it was about how we learn the most about something or some things after major events. And unfortunately, personally, and I saw across the board with too many things, identity politics is still alive and well. And it wasn't enough to carry Harris across the line, but it's disappointing that some people, especially people that you think were supporting one thing, just because it was a woman or because it was her color or just heritage or whatever it was, they did it based on that, just as an up yours to Trump or an up yours to Kerry Lake.
Right.
And I don't mind agreeing to disagree. Sometimes I express it better than others. But it's, again, the word disappointing comes up because I thought we were getting somewhere in this world where we didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, over the last 10 years or so, maybe closer to 20, we're closing in on now, with color of skin is mattering more than content of character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not how I was raised. It's not how I thought our country was. I know our country was heading in the right direction. Yes, racism still exists, color preferential things, or whatever, however you want to look at that. That part's illegal, but there are still people who have, the color of skin, or they make that, the important part, or the sex, or whatever it may be, or the religion. But it was going away. People our age were being raised to be accepting and be colorblind the way Dr. King wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So to see identity politics, both politically and apolitically, still deciding way too much, the pendulum's got to start swinging back again. However, I'm not going to be, the wet blanket right now, because the pendulum is swinging back in an amazing way. And look, Donald Trump, not my favorite person in the world, but I saw him at a rally. I wasn't at the rally as a participant. I was working his recent rally out here at the Mullet Arena,
Mm-hmm.
and he and all the candidates who were on the card before him, vote early. Don't vote often, vote early. And I think that made a huge difference this year for everybody across the board. I used to be opposed to it, and I still am of the mindset that it should be one day, make it a national holiday if you want. I think it would be great to get kids in high school in civics classes and above. Please bring back civics classes first off. But
There's a concept.
16th or 18-year-olds, take it. Look, it's a national holiday. You get the day off. However, because you're of a certain age, it's kind of like a conscription thing. You are going to go in and learn the process. You're going to volunteer for 2-3 hours out of the day. Mm-hmm. I think that would help poll workers. The old guard or the middle-aged guard would be able to pass that down to the young guard. I just think that's a great idea. But as Vivek, and thank you, John Ziegler. I don't really know how to pronounce the guy's last name. I just call him Fake Obama Swami. But he was a great speaker that day at the rally, and he was echoing what a lot of people were saying. Marco Rubio was there. And did I hear correctly that Marco Rubio is going to be Secretary of State?
I believe so. I've just started following the announcements about who's going to be.
Okay. I was hoping for Richard Grenell, but that's a different story. But I hope Richard Grenell, there's room for him in the upcoming administration if it hasn't already been announced. But the message, until we get that desired holiday and process, whether it's with kids of a particular age or not, vote with the rules that are there, and vote early. Get it done. No excuses. If you are 18 and above, it's your responsibility. Get out. And as was pointed out by someone I know to their son recently, he chose not to vote, recently turned 18. Okay, well, then you have no right to bitch about anything for the next 4 years.
Yep.
Politically speaking. So that's what it comes down to, folks. Vote early if you want to, but just make sure you're getting out there. I'll be there. Jim will be there. And it's America. This is what we're founded on, freedom and the freedom of expression. Make sure you're getting it out there and doing it. Before I turn into more of a cliche right now, I'm going to turn it over to Jim for his takes.
Oh, we're all cliches.
What went down and where we are headed, or should be headed.
Or should be. Yeah, no, I think you hinted at this, but I feel like this election was a real turning point as far as all this identity politics stuff, because it's been really strange seeing the turns our political culture has taken in the last few decades. Yeah. It was very much more traditional issues up until 15, 20 years ago. And then starting with, I think 9/11 is when it started. And then later with Obama, the Obama election, our everything got hijacked, and it turned into this discussion of piggybacking on demographics rather than talking about actual issues. And it became a contest of, how you have to prove how much you care about this group or how much you care about that group, or you have to prove you don't hate some other group, and it used to be culturally, we assumed certain things about each other. We assumed that we weren't haters. You know, we assumed we weren't bigots. That somebody would have to prove to you that they were that through something.
Yeah.
And until they did, you would assume they weren't. You would assume that they were arguing in good faith.
Right.
And the conversation changed to where you're guilty until proven innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, "Oh no, I'm going to assume that you're bigoted. I'm going to assume that you don't like other people, and you have to prove otherwise through politics."
Especially if you're wearing a shirt that's red, white, and blue.
Right. Exactly. And that's a very fundamental shift in our culture, to go from you're innocent of bigotry until proven guilty to you're guilty of bigotry until you prove it using whatever criterion I'm going to throw out this week.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think and it just put everyone on the defensive, and really just dragged out our divisions in a big way, because it attached all these emotional issues to our politics that weren't there before.
Yeah.
And you can't have a reasonable discussion with someone who's assuming that you're, I don't even want to say the word, but a very bigoted person, and then puts the burden of proof on you to prove otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So it really makes these discussions impossible. So I believe all of this was done with an intention to basically make one side of the political aisle toxic, and say, if you're associating with this group in any way, you're associating with bigots, with whatever. When the trans movement really caught on, this war between the pro-trans people and the feminists, they call them TERFs now, was just, it was crazy how divided it got. It turned into, if you disagree with this movement on any issue, even if you're like a hardcore feminist, Democrat, liberal, you disagree with them on any issue, like you don't want, like boys in a girl's bathroom, boys on a girl's soccer team, whatever.
Yeah.
Then they put you, right in there with Adolf Hitler. It's insane.
I'll take you one further. Very quickly. I was watching a concert by Lucero during 2020 when people weren't touring at the end of that year. They had a virtual block party, and one of the people on the bill was, I think, Laura Jean Grace, a famous trans performer. And in their previous band, before the transition was made from man to woman, they were a hard rocking band, and then they played the Replacements, one of my favorite bands. But on that particular show, the virtual block party, Laura Jean Grace did an acoustic version of a Replacement song. And I'm like, and we had a chat room going. Everyone's just having a good. We're all just glad to be, getting together and watching Lucero in the opening acts when there aren't any concerts going on. So, but I just said something as innocuous was, I'm just not feeling it. This is a Replacement song that there needs to be a little bit more oomph behind it. It had nothing to do whatsoever with how they, call themselves a trans sexual or not. It was just talking about the music. And I got piled on. You're a bigot. You're a transphobe. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. I'm talking about the music, not what may or may not be between her legs right now. Right. But yeah, I got drummed out of the circle because I got bullied out. And I've never enjoyed that. The people who complain the most about bullying, and bullying should be addressed, don't get me wrong. But the ones who used to be so and still claim to be so above bullying are the biggest bullies of all.
Well, and the people that claim that they're fighting for equality will spit roast you if you treat these people equally. If you treat people with the same, if you treat people with the same level of respect you would give anybody else, that's bigotry to these people. Yeah. And that's insanity. It's insane.
Yeah, it's going further what you're saying. It's just the divisions. Yeah.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, even these arguments were unthinkable and would be like satire. and now
Mhm.
they're what's being pushed. So no, I think that they would say the Overton window is moved, and what's can be discussed is changing, but um, I don't think that everyday folks have really made that turn culturally. I
Mhm.
think I think I think a lot of regular everyday folks, regardless of their gender, their color, whatever, I think a lot of them haven't really changed too many thoughts on those issues over the last 20 years. And I think what this election was it repudiated a lot of that. Um, a lot of that, you have to follow this narrative, you have to follow that narrative.
Mhm.
And people are saying, no, I never made that turn with you. I never asked you to drag me along on that ride. I'm still the same person I was 20 years ago. And you don't get to just tell me to be different, you know? And when given the opportunity, people make their own voices heard, and I don't think they're just not going along with these narratives, you know?
It's
Um,
been refreshing to see again, even if the pendulum just swinging a little bit, it's swinging in the proper direction.
yeah. And I mean, yeah, and the exit polling, I mean, it shows it because what they were pushing for a long time was just white men. It's just old white men, or whatever. But you look at the numbers from this election. Trump did really well with Hispanics. Did really well with women. He did really well with younger folks. He got almost 50% of the vote between 18 and 29. Uh, just nothing lining up with what the narrative said. And
And
so a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no, and then branching off of that, New Jersey, states like New Jersey, which are technically, Democrat strongholds or have been for a while, uh, certain Republican or quote unquote Republican governors notwithstanding in that place. But Illinois, I think was within 5 points.
Yeah,
That's previously unheard of. New Jersey,
yeah,
the numbers were shrinking. And that goes to what I brought up on our election day show.
mhm.
I don't care about the Republican solution. I don't care about the Democrat solution. I care about the solution that's best for America. And it was so refreshing. And it goes back to what I said earlier about, these preconceived notions I had about who would be voting for a particular person. We wanted what was best for America. And flawed though he may be,
Yep.
Trump is a better leader to get policies across than Harris is to making this country better for everybody, regardless of what your party is, to succeed.
By far, yeah. And you can look at the last 8 years. I mean, it's clear as day in terms of what the the economy during Trump's up until COVID,
Right.
and versus what it was under Biden.
Pandemic. Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah. Let's whole nother discussion, but yeah,
Yeah.
and you can look at we had 4 years of peace, no new wars, and then Biden comes in and the world's on fire. You
Mhm.
know, and you have inflation and all these other things. I mean, the difference is night and day. You can look at it very clearly on all these issues and how they affected everyday Americans, and the choice is very stark and very clear. But none of the reactions to the election I'm seeing, the social media freakouts and all these things, none of them are reflecting that reality. They're just diving back into identity politics. They're just saying, oh, why everybody's voting. You've got black people voting for racism, and you've got blah 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 blah, and women voting for
For a rapist.
women voting for to get put into Handmaid's Tale costumes and just all this insane stuff. And I'm thinking,
It didn't work 4 years ago, and that's what I kept saying to people who are willing to have a conversation and not just go at loggerheads.
Right.
Did I just use loggerheads in a sentence? Wow. Didn't see that coming.
I mean, if you can look at things logically, you can say, what's more likely, that people were voting for policies that would work, or that or you can look at the identity politics way and say, like, there are millions and millions of women that are voting for their own enslavement and wanting that, and it's just, you create, but these narratives get pumped into people's minds, and there's nothing logical behind them. It's all emotional, but they can't break out of that mindset. So, when, something like this election is evidence of the opposite, their minds can't handle it, so they just go right back into the same old narratives, and they can't break out of them. You can see it in the things they're saying nowadays. They just can't break out of that mindset, and they're not going to. I don't think for the next 4 years for a lot of them.
What I was able to do with people actually want to have a conversation, as opposed to just yelling at each other or just walking away from it, agreeing to disagree.
Yeah,
he's going to put us in concentration camps. I said, you mean the ones that he didn't do his first 4 years in office?
right.
He's going to do this. You mean like he didn't do the first 4 years he was in office? Well, he's out for bear now. It's just, no, he's out for getting the country back on track.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you can't really make up ideas about what he's going to do, because we know what he's going to do because he already did it for 4 years. He's going to keep doing those things. So, you can't imagine pretend it's going to be a whole different thing.
And with that in mind, as we move forward, that I think is the biggest test right now more than anything. And David Cole, who we're hopefully going to have on the show. No, not hopefully. We're going to have David on the show again very soon. And in his column this week over at Talkies, he very astutely points out, yes, now's our time to celebrate. Now it's time, as I mentioned earlier, the name of this episode, Post-Election Elation.
Mm-hmm.
Is this new mandated Republican Party going to do something with it, do what the people wanted? And Babylon B had a great thing about, a picture of the Republican leadership saying, Republican leadership gathers together to discuss how they're going to squander the next 2 years. It has been said, we know what the people want, and in the words of the Kings, give the people what they want, and let's make it happen. Don't waste time. You've been given the White House, you've been given the Senate, and has it been decided yet or not? The House is officially.
I believe it has, although again, you'd have to double check me on that, but I'm pretty sure it has.
But either way, it's 3 out of 3 of the branches
mm-hmm.
of the legislative and executive, and you still have a Supreme Court that should vote constitutionally. Now's the time to get that pendulum swinging more rapidly, because that's what people want, no matter what the people buzzing on social media. That's background noise.
Yeah, I think under other leadership, they probably would this would just be an excuse to rest on their laurels. But I think say what you want about Trump, but he is very serious about getting things done.
He's a doer.
So yeah. I think things are going to happen over the next 2 to 4 years. I don't know if he's going to get everything he wants. I mean, he didn't get everything he wanted the first 4 years for various reasons. So, I can't speculate about what's going to happen, but I think things are definitely going to happen. There's going to be a lot of movement. There's going to be a lot of moving the needle on certain things. I don't think that I'm sure if certain people had their way, then nothing would get done in the next 4 years. But I don't think that's what's going to happen at all.
Well, ultimately, it comes down to us, we the people, holding the politicians' feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't do it, it's just as bad as what was mentioned earlier with people choosing not to vote.
Yep. And I will say I think that part of what I think Trump is trying to do in the next 4 years is implement a legacy of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why he picked J.D. Vance, because I think he sees him as a rising star that can kind of carry the torch after 2028.
Mm-hmm.
And folks like Vivek and some of the other young guns there. There's a lot of new blood happening right now, both in terms of who's voting and who's in the party. And I think that the Mitch McConnells aren't going to be there a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be really interesting to see what happens, but I think that's the direction we're heading right now is a lot more action and less talk.
Yeah. In the almighty words of Joe Elliott and Def Leppard, give me actions, not words.
Indeed.
Yeah, we could end the show on that. We won't. We could have. That could be our little button. But no, but again, Jim, I'm glad you got to work the polls. I'm excited that I got to work the poll and be a part of the process. And we just what you're saying, what's coming up for the Democrats, it's going to be Gavin Newsom. And I hope whoever, whether it's Vance or someone else, ascends and Vance is vice president again. I still would like to have DeSantis in there, if not as president, as a VP. So to keep that wave of amazing energy and positive energy. That's what I like too. Yes, obviously there was mudslinging going on from both sides. Don't get me wrong. No denying that. But there's more positivity coming from the right. And that was evidence. And we go back to Reagan, both a person and the way that he presented himself. Americans want a message of hope, a true message of hope, a message of results. They want positivity. And as negative as Trump can be and is, he's a name caller. And he's got bluster, but the man, like I said, he's a doer. And you can't be successful if you're working from a negative standpoint. Americans realize that, and I'm glad we the people more than not did. Now's the time. Let's do it, folks. And never forget, hold their feet to the fire if they're not going to do what they said they're going to do.
Absolutely. Rule number one right there.
All right, folks, that has been the latest episode of All Over the Place. We always thank you for watching, subscribing, sharing, comment. We'd love to hear your comments down here, whether it's you can comment on the audio platforms. Obviously, you can comment over at YouTube. We look forward to it. We look forward to dialogue. Let's talk. We got 4 years now of this current administration.
Yep.
Let's talk about good, bad, or indifferent. But, all over the place. We're always coming at you with great guests here for you, folks. Thanks again for watching. And Jim, as always, my friend, great discussions, great breakdowns. Look forward to next week.
Absolutely. Same here.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All over the place, where the fun sanity never ends.